was to the work I was actually doing. And I thought to myself, what I really wanted to do was explore the social impact space professionally. I just wasn't familiar with what that industry looked like, what roles were available to me, and that's what led me to get my MBA. I went to school here in New York at Columbia and graduated in 2023. And while at school, I spent a lot of my time there learning about social impact and, in particular, impact investing and getting involved in the student led impact fund at Columbia, and taking, of course, as many venture and social impact classes as I could. And after graduating, I was fortunate enough to join Upstart, where I officially started my impact investing career. Later in the Q&A, I'm happy to talk more about, what surprised me when I started working here versus what I learned in the classroom. Really anything about the MBA experience and impact investing, just let me know after and happy to share more. And I'll pass it over to Ward.
Great. Thanks, Aparna, and thanks, Annabelle and everyone. Annabelle, it's great to see you again. I know we first connected a while ago, since before you started at Wharton. So it's thank you so much for inviting us here. So my name's Ward Wolf. I'm a director on the Upstart team. I am based in Los Angeles, so I am the West Coast member of our small and nimble team here at Upstart. But I've worked closely with Laura and our colleagues over the last 7 years to help build and grow Upstart. As a member of the investment team, I lead our work with early stage companies and direct investments, and these are all companies in creative industries, which we'll go over in a second. But I joined the team after earning my MBA. I was at NYU Stern. This was in 2017. So there in business school, I was deep in impact investing, sustainability, finance. Proud to still be active there at Stern as an advisor to their Center for Sustainable Business. And as the campus mentor for the National Impact Investment Training Program, the Mint. I'm sure many of you know it as it's run out of the Wharton ESG initiative. But anyway, I make the annual trip to campus, serve as a judge for the final competition there. A quick bit about my background. I pre-MBA, I was a startup co-founder and partnerships lead for several mission-driven organizations, including some in music and the performing arts. These were all, experiences which you can see, or you will see, how it all sort of comes into play at Upstart. But also for me in particular, it gave me insight into early stage companies and the challenges and opportunities faced by creative entrepreneurs. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having us.
Great. And Annabelle, I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to share my screen and ask you if you can bring that up so that folks can see it in the room. And I will pick up the baton here. So, and it looks like you're seeing it, which is great. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you about what we do at Upstart Co-Lab. We work at the intersection of creativity, investment, and impact. And Ward and Aparna are part of our team. Others on the team bring both investing backgrounds like Bill McAlpin and Bonnie Mullenbrock, and general social sector backgrounds like Emily Wilson and Serena Desai. I'm the founding partner at Upstart. I launched Upstart in 2016. Immediately before that, I was the senior deputy chair at the National Endowment for the Arts, your federal arts agency. And it was from that vantage point that I saw the gap or the opportunity to connect the trillions of dollars of impact investing capital with the 10% of the American economy that's in creative industries like film and TV and video games and music and fashion and beauty and more. I brought both an orientation to the arts, a deep commitment to the social sector, and practical investing experience. I was the deputy chief investment officer at the Rockefeller Foundation, and prior to that, managed the endowment for the Wallace Foundation. So I'd worked as an investor, and at the Rockefeller Foundation helped to launch the early impact investing work, something called the Program Venture Experiment. So this just gives you a little bit about my background, which I just to say, when you're thinking about impact investing, having the commitment to impact, I would say, is not always sufficient. You need those hard financial tools as well to be able to actually bring everything that the sector needs forward. So jumping into Upstart, we're a nonprofit. We're what's called a sponsored project of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. They serve as our fiscal sponsor. They're a larger nonprofit. We are under their umbrella. Our mission is to connect capital to creative people who make a profit and make a difference. We see creative people as the ultimate problem solvers, and we know that they can bring innovation and efficiency and new ideas to communities, families, the planet, and we think that that's going to be really crucial to the future. What does it mean for Upstart to be a field builder? As a nonprofit, connecting impact investing to the creative economy, we are unique in the United States. There are entities like us in other parts of the world. There are places in the world already who have large funds that invest at this intersection of impact and creative economy. But what we're introducing here in the US, it's brand new. So we had to undertake it in a variety of ways. We have anchored everything we've done in thought leadership. Ward talked a little bit about being a leader on a lot of our research. We've done about 16 research reports over the last nearly 10 years so that we always have facts and stories and examples as the basis for all the decisions that we make. We've had to reach out and educate potential investors about this opportunity for the creative economy and to educate creative economy leaders about what is impact investing. And we do that through a network, convening people. We do that showing up at conferences, getting covered in places like the New York Times and Fast Company and the art newspaper. So our network and our brand have been really crucial to educating the community, identifying like-minded partners, building a coalition of folks to work with us in this space. But what really is important is mobilizing capital. And to do that, you need two things. You need capital in the form of relationships with investors who believe in the power of art, design, culture, heritage, and creativity to deliver market rate returns and deep social and environmental impact. And you need a qualified pipeline of investable opportunities that fulfill the expectations that impact investors have. And so these are all of the pieces that we've put together to advance the mission of Upstart Co-Lab. In terms of our trajectory, our story, and sort of how we've approached this phase by phase since we started, the first few years were really exploration, trying to understand why, as impact investing had grown, the creative industries had not been front and center to the conversation. So a lot of the research, framing of terms, figuring out how to talk about the creative economy in ways that investors could understand it, doing some pilot investment projects with large community development finance partners like the Calvert Foundation and the Local Initiative Support Corporation, which goes by the acronym LISC. That was all a very busy first few years. We then moved into a phase to really demonstrate what was possible, working with families and foundations and endowed cultural institutions to educate them and to help them mobilize their capital in alignment with their values and mission, and continued to build the understanding of the field about the opportunity through additional thought leadership. And we're in now what I would say is the most exciting phase of the process. We have recently launched the first impact investing portfolio for the American creative industries. We're making investments. Wharton and Upstart will tell you about the investments that we've closed so far, 4 investments that we've closed so far in the last 9 or 10 months. And we're using this portfolio to demonstrate the potential with the hope that others will basically copycat us. Success for us is not that Upstart dominates this field. As someone who's trying to mobilize more capital for the creative economy, success for us is when other impact investing fund managers jump in and decide that the creative industries are a priority. When wealth advisors who have art-loving clients come to them asking for impact investing opportunities connected to creativity and culture, say, yes, we can do that. And here's where we can put your money to work in alignment with your priorities. And just to continue to find new ways to move capital. For example, today we announced that we will do some consulting. We are introducing a new business line called Upstart Consults to work with asset owners and fund managers, wealth advisors who want to prioritize the creative economy. So that's a little bit about where we've been and where we continue to head. As I mentioned, one of the first things we did was scope what we meant by an inclusive creative economy. We looked at how states and regions around the US define their local creative economy for the purpose of economic development planning and anticipating the future of jobs growth in their region. We identified 145 industries using the taxonomy that business leaders and investors are familiar with, the North American Industrial Classification Standards, the NAICS codes. 145 specific industries is a lot to carry around, so we bucketed them in the way you see here. We leaned into fashion, food, and social impact media with a focus on film and TV and video games early on, because even 9, 10 years ago, there was some nascent impact investing interest in these categories. And we literally put the other industries into the other creative business bucket, which we've been investigating and unpacking over time. The first four categories around business and enterprise. The fifth category thinks about real estate as an asset class. And we did a lot of work there in the first 3 or 4 years at Upstart. Currently, we're exclusively focused on making equity investments in businesses. So we've parked the lending to real estate projects that we focused on early on, but we continue to track opportunities as part of understanding the general investment landscape and our role as field builder and thought leader. I'm going to turn it over to Ward to talk a little bit about how we source opportunities and about our proprietary deal pipeline.
Great. Thanks, Laura. So, yes, Laura mentioned, just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about the investment pipeline that we've been proud to build at Upstart. So this pipeline currently consists more than 300 opportunities, raising more than $2 billion in impact capital over the next 24 months. This is an evolving landscape. It's been the basis for our advisory work with foundations and families, as Laura described in our history, and really reflects our field building work and research since inception. And this is the starting point for selections for our investment portfolio today. So this is just a breakdown as far as where the landscape sits today. A third of the opportunities in our pipeline are funds, 2/3 are companies, across the creative industries. We have a relatively even split across our 5 main creative economy pillars: ethical fashion, sustainable food, impact media, which includes film and TV, video games, music, other creative businesses, and what we call creative places, which are essentially real estate opportunities. The other bucket includes things like, visual art platforms or solutions for the visual art market, immersive experiences, and many other businesses in art, culture, and heritage industries that drive social impact. Lastly, I'll just note the online creator economy represents a growing area for us. So this refers to the digital tools, platforms used by creative people to monetize their work and reach new audiences online. So that's a growing segment of our pipeline, currently at around 13%, and expect that to be bigger. Just a quick note, how we build this. Our sourcing strategy really leverages our network and expertise and the role that we've played, building the market for impact investing in the creative economy. We are proud to have on our advisory board and investment committee true impact investing leaders. We're present at conferences like SOCAP. We get a lot of earned media coverage, which brings us a lot of submissions through our online portal. So do our sourcing partners, which include, funds, accelerators, university centers, and others sort of at the intersection of impact and creative industries. Lastly, as Laura noted, we undertake targeted outbound research. For example, something that Aparna has been leading on, but over the last few months, we've been going deep on media and entertainment, a sector which, obviously has been changing quickly and presenting numerous opportunities for impact investors. Speaking of our research, in a minute, you will see the 5 pillars of our impact thesis. But one important one to note is access to capital. This is really informed by research we conducted in the offset, in which we looked at more than 100 impact funds with exposure to creative industries, specifically to see how they perform in terms of diversity and inclusion. And what we found is an interesting correlation. Those funds with greatest exposure to creative industries tended to be led by diverse fund managers and invested in diverse entrepreneurs. In addition, we found that BIPOC and women-led businesses are well represented in creative industries themselves. So bottom line, if you care about investing for equity and inclusion, the creative economy is a great place to look. So thus, we focus on funds and companies led by diverse fund managers and founders. 63% of companies are led by women or people of color, what we refer to as diverse-led. 76% of funds are diverse-led, and I'll just note that all 4 of the investments that we've made so far for our inclusive creative economy strategy are led by diverse teams. The other piece, not something we actively seek, but has emerged as an interesting point when we're looking at, who is leading the opportunities in our pipeline. More than a third are led by artists and designers. So these are, practicing artists, formerly trained artists. Maybe it's how they began their career or is still part of their life. Um, which is not something we actively pursue, but is something that we've noticed certainly as a result of our unique focus and approach, and also illustrates the kind of problem solving mindset and impact orientation that creative people, bring to their enterprise.
Great. And as Ward described, we have a clear impact thesis at Upstart, and we drive towards this in all the investments that we make. We screen for this when we're qualifying opportunities to be included in our proprietary deal pipeline. Access to capital, financial inclusion is top of the list for the reasons that were just described, not only because we believe it's important, but because there's a natural correlation between diverse founders having success in the creative industries. We think a lot about quality jobs in the 21st century creative industries, a new kind of manufacturing, particularly leaning into media and entertainment and the creator economy. And we recognize the role that creative places and businesses play anchoring vibrant communities. So you might recognize that these are themes that a lot of impact investors think about: financial inclusion, quality jobs, and community development. So we have investors with Upstart in our inclusive creative economy strategy who are not art lovers or mission aligned with art and creativity, but are seeking these types of impacts and recognize they don't want to overlook the 10% of the American economy that's in the creative industries when searching for the best possible deals, both from a financial return and an impact perspective. The fourth criteria for us, we think about how to enable sustainable lives and livelihoods for artists, designers, and creative people. And that definitely reflects our commitment to creative people as problem solvers and our focus on the creative economy. And lastly is a concept that we've originated, what we call an inclusive creative economy. It's anchored in a few tenets around the power of openness and experimentation to solve problems, the importance of diversity and inclusion to solve hard problems better and faster, and the benefits of thinking about both tradition and innovation as you're thinking about the future. So now you have a sense of what we mean by creative economy, the type of impact we're driving for. In our inclusive creative economy strategy, we're seeking market rate returns. And I'll turn it over to Aparna to walk us through our investment thesis for the inclusive creative economy strategy that we launched last year with about $15 million from investors like the Ford Foundation and the Toledo Museum of Art.
So we have four pillars that make up our approach to portfolio construction for the inclusive creative economy strategy. Looking first at how we see creative economy exposure. As we've talked about, we're committed to investing in companies within creative industries. So this is going to include things like fashion, food, film and TV, and video games, to name a few. And our investment strategy takes a portfolio approach. So we're investing in businesses in the creative industries both directly as well as through funds. You can think of it as a fund of funds and a venture fund together. Specifically regarding the funds, we're investing in those that are led by BIPOC and women fund managers, investing in BIPOC and women entrepreneurs. And through our review of over 100 sustainable and impact funds, we've actually found that fund managers backing diverse founders often really have that meaningful portfolio exposure to businesses in the creative industries. So the funds we invest in have 50% or more exposure to the creative industries. Thinking a little bit more about the investment characteristics, we make venture stage equity investments and we're targeting market rates. So we developed a pro forma, suggest that best case returns are going to be 20%, and the lower end of returns would probably be around 11%. Like I said before, a key element of our impact thesis is to support BIPOC and women entrepreneurs. And since only about 3% of capital under management is run by diverse managers, we know that this commitment is going to mean we're going to be investing in emerging funds, which we define as Fund 1, Fund 2, as well as valued at under $100 million. For companies, we are focused on seed and Series A companies that are already generating revenue, and we're focused on companies and funds based and operating in the United States. Thinking more about how Upstart adds value, we don't expect to be a traditional lead financial investor for funds and companies we invest in. They're going to be the ones coming in first, writing the biggest checks, setting the terms, but we're going to be adding value in specific ways to the funds and companies we invest in, as in the role of lead creative economy investor, as well as the role of lead impact investor. I'll touch first on our role as lead creative economy investor. Through our research, as I've said, we've seen that those funds supporting BIPOC and women entrepreneurs often have that significant exposure to the creative economy. This is not intentional in on the GP's part as part of their investment thesis, but the creative industries are where the merit and originality of these diverse entrepreneurs get recognized and rewarded. The GPs don't always see this. They don't make that connection that a company in the food sector or a company in the fashion sector or a design firm are all under that umbrella of the creative economy. So Upstart's able to introduce the idea of the creative economy to fund managers and help them recognize that what they're already doing is going to be interesting to those art-loving impact investors who will invest in them because of their creative economy exposure. So we help, GPs reframe their pitch to center that culture and creativity. For our companies, we bring our creative economy perspective, particularly when we're investing alongside investors that are specifically focused on impact only. And we'll touch on this a little bit in a little bit more detail on the next slide when we discuss our portfolio and the company making space. With respect to our role as an impact investor, most of the companies we're working with have first-time founders, and many of them are artists and creative people with impact in their DNA. So our value add here would be more to support them with processes around becoming certified as a B Corporation, for example, or measuring impact metrics and publishing an annual impact report. But we also ask all of our funds and companies we invest with to sign an impact reporting side letter, which is essentially them committing to provide us with impact data to inform our annual impact report. These organizations are already interested in achieving impact goals, but they may not have formalized it yet through impact reporting, and we're really proud that this is something that we've encouraged them to think about and commit to. Finally, moving on to portfolio construction, 78% of our capital will be allocated to funds, 25% of capital to companies. And we're looking to write meaningful checks for both funds and companies. You can see the figures on the slide. And we know that BIPOC and women fund managers and entrepreneurs usually have a longer journey to raise capital because they typically receive smaller checks. And we really want to help them reach their goals faster and stop raising capital and actually shift focus to investing their fund or growing their company, which is what leads us to our portfolio on the next slide. I'm happy to kick off talking about our funds. The first fund is SoGal Ventures. They describe themselves as investing in next-gen billion-dollar businesses that unapologetically benefit people, society, and the planet. And they have a focus on future living, working, and staying healthy. SoGal invests across consumer goods, as well as the technology for the creator economy and technology solutions for community building. 50% of SoGal's first fund was in the creative economy, and this is expected to continue in Fund 2, which is what we've invested in. We're really proud that SoGal Ventures is a women, BIPOC, LGBTQ, and artist designer-led fund, with GPs Pocket Sun and Elizabeth Galbert specifically backing women and BIPOC-led companies. SoGal actually already publishes an impact report, and it lines up really well across all 5 dimensions of Upstart's impact thesis. And they describe themselves as a high conviction investor, helping their entrepreneurs have capital confidence needed to make growth decisions and by helping their female founders navigate challenges that disproportionately affect them. To give you a sense of size, SoGal Ventures closed their second fund at just under $41 million. The second fund is True Beauty Ventures, which is a sector-specific fund investing, I'm sure you've guessed it, predominantly in the beauty space. And we're really excited about this investment because their focus in the beauty industry has a really high correlation with our thesis, with 85% exposure to the creative economy in their first fund. Just to give you a little context of our focus on the creative economy and how Upstart sees the beauty industry fitting into our thesis. So things like hair, makeup, skincare, it really fits in 2 ways. The first is as a part of personal creative expression, for example, a colorful hair dye or makeup that would allow a consumer to be themselves in the world. And the second would be as a link to culture and heritage, for example, a beauty brand rooted in Ayurveda. So in contrast, we would not consider something like an anti-aging skincare product as a fit for the creative economy, which is how we base alignment there. The fund is aligned across all of our impact thesis pillars as well. For example, the team is 80% women and 40% BIPOC. In Fund 1, 75% of portfolio company founders were diverse. And True Beauty Ventures intentionally seeks out companies aligned with what they call their 5 impact categories. So this is things like companies that cater to people of color by producing a wide range of makeup shades, companies that specifically make products for natural and textured hair, as well as companies addressing things like hyperpigmentation, which is a skin condition that disproportionately affects people of color. So you can really see, the fund's focus on diversity and impact isn't an add-on, but fully integrated into their investment strategy. And the fund is led by GPs Rich Gersten and Christina Nunez. They've got combined 45 plus years of experience. They've worked together in the beauty industry as private equity investors as well as operators prior. And just noting here that Christina is a Latina fund manager, and less than 1% of VC funds are led by Latinas. And they closed their second fund at $75 million. And finally, moving on to Willow Growth Partners. Willow invests in entrepreneurs building the next generation of consumer brands, as well as the technologies that support them. So their focus on consumer brands, of course, leads to a high correlation with creative industries, specifically food, fashion, and other creative businesses like beauty, hair care, and perfumes. We also have a better for you, better for the planet approach. So that coupled with their commitment to diversity really aligns well with Upstart's impact goals. They have a track record of backing women and BIPOC founders. They use something called a diversity rider, which is essentially a commitment to bring their BIPOC and women-led funds in as co-investors on deals they lead. And they also have a focus on creating quality jobs. The two GPs are Deborah Benton and Amanda Schutzbank. They're former operators and investors, and they describe their roles as to support the founder and mold their approach to what each founder needs. So this would include things like enhancing org design, recruiting and hiring the right team, connecting with right strategic partners and service providers. And very excitingly, their fund two was well oversubscribed at $91 million. And that's a quick recap on the three funds. I'll pass it over to Ward to talk about the companies.
Great, thanks, Aparna. Yeah, so to make it come to life on the company side, I'm happy to talk about the first investment that we made into a company as part of the strategy. This is a company called Making Space. We participated in a $2.1 million seed round, which closed in last fall. This is a B2B software as a service company. It's a social learning platform that provides accessible education for creative workers with disabilities, and builds a disability representative talent pipeline for corporations in media and entertainment, tech, advertising, and more. So the company's responding to sort of two key things. Number one, it's the rapid growth of online recruiting and e-learning market, which emphasizes assessing job candidates based on skills, as opposed to educational pedigree and personal networks. And secondly, the rising demand for corporate hiring and learning solutions that prioritize workforce development, accessibility, talent retention, particularly in the rapidly evolving and tech-forward sectors like media entertainment. So what the company does is they work with employers to develop skill-based courses for talent to pre-qualify for specific open roles. So these are technical and creative roles in companies of all types. These are for roles as designers, copywriters, creative directors, producers, editors, etc. Their first clients include companies like Netflix, Amazon Studios, NBC. Each has very specific hiring needs. For Netflix, it was for staffing up in the graphic design department. NBC was staffing up for their coverage of the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris last summer, and they are contracted to be doing the same thing in Los Angeles in 4 years. What's really interesting about this company is they pair this SaaS platform with their own content brand. So this is called Making Space Media, and their role is to produce stories, both scripted and non-scripted, for film and TV that really work to center people with disabilities. They have a big production deal with Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine, and the goal is around changing perceptions and narratives around what it means to have a disability. It also effectively serves as the marketing arm and the content production arm for the platform itself. Keely Catwells is the name of the entrepreneur who leads this company. Her lived experience really reflects the impact she seeks. She was fired from an on-set job when seeking accommodations for her disability as required by law. She had worked professionally as an actor and a dancer and in Hollywood film and TV production crews. By her early 20s, she'd already successfully exited her first company, which is called C Talent. this is a talent agency in the creator economy. She also just has a growing profile as an activist for the disability community. She's a strong advocate, compelling spokesperson, and is really, front and center with a lot of these issues. So the team is mission and values aligned. All 5 core team members have a disability or have served as a caregiver to someone with a disability, and additionally, most have professional training and experience in the arts. So in terms of portfolio fit, you can see this is an illustration of a company that delivers strongly against our impact thesis, specifically sustainable creative lives, quality jobs, access to capital, with a innovative multi-pronged model that with a unique angle in a growing market. We first met from a sourcing perspective. We first met the founder about a year and a half ago as an introduction from another fund manager. We monitored closely as they'd closed pre-seed round and gained early traction with some of these initial clients, and do this. And we got to watch her sign these contracts and really grow the team and grow the platform. When it came time for us to consider investing, the founder really wanted Upstart on the cap table, just given the relationship that built and the value add that she perceived us having. So it kept the round open for us just to be able to participate. We really bring the creative economy angle to the cap table. Cap table or had previously consisted of investors who focused on other areas like future of work, disabilities, education, and so happy to bring the creative economy aspect to the cap table. Anyway, that's a little bit about Making Space.
Great. And so here are the investors who are working with Upstart, committed to our inclusive creative economy strategy. As a nonprofit, we pay the team and keep the lights on because of grant support. So we've got some donors who are making this possible as well. And this is how you can get in touch. You've got emails for Ward and Aparna on our website as well. So Annabelle, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're ready to have some conversation with everybody.
Okay. Actually do this as well. You can see my face too. Does anyone have immediate questions? Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Even, I consider myself familiar with your work and I learned so much. So thank you for that. Do we have immediate questions from the room? I think the audio should be able to catch it. Yeah.
I have one. This is the way they can maybe see me. I don't know if I sit here. Anyway. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your proprietary database and if that if the set of opportunities that you have in your database are primarily to feed your own impact investments, or are you intending on using those with partners or in consulting engagements, and just how practically are you using that pipeline?
So yes, we're excited to dip into it as we get engaged for these new advisory roles. It's been the basis for a lot of our research historically, because if you look at our online research reports, they've got examples and as well as facts and figures. And it's been the basis for, as Ward described, all of the consulting we've done. We've mobilized about $45 million towards our mission since we began in 2016. And that includes about $14 million that was allocated by some 10 families and foundations we advised for a while, and a number of other, we've dipped into the pipeline as the basis for working with a number of other investors over our lifespan. And it's very much the starting point for the investing we're doing now through the inclusive creative economy strategy. Ward, do you want to talk a little bit about how something moves from the pipeline up to consideration by the investment committee?
Sure. Yeah. So that's just to say that as far as the landscape that we've built in this pipeline, a small percentage we will be considering for investment moving through our process. So we do a lot, with the pipeline as far as research, landscape, and we'll be dipping into for our consulting work. But as far as how things move from the pipeline to consideration, first, to get it into our pipeline, we have our screening process. We're screening for creative industry alignment, social impact, and all the investability considerations. Once something passes that initial screen, we'll discuss internally as a team, see what might be worth bringing for deeper diligence and review with our investment committee. Investment committee meets about every other month. As we described previously, they bring really diverse expertise across the social sector, impact investing, venture capital, also from the perspective of a business owner and operator. So yeah, that's just a little bit about how the funnel, actually works. We do try to add value for every entrepreneur or fund manager that we do come across. Just recognizing that ultimately, we will be investing in a small percentage of the companies that are in our pipeline, but we have things like, we share resources for entrepreneurs that are perhaps exploring the world of impact investing for the first time. A lot of entrepreneurs that we work with, especially those from creative backgrounds, might be the first time they're starting a company. They are leading with their values, but they haven't necessarily, they're not necessarily well versed in the world of impact investing and social enterprise. They don't know what a B Corp is and all that kind of stuff. So we try to, coach them, provide resources as we see appropriate.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Rothbard. You can't see me on this screen, but thanks for making the time. I have two questions. One, I know it's part of what you guys consider the creative economy, but how are you guys thinking about the emerging contemporary fine art world, and what are some of the things you're thinking about in the near future for how to capture that market? And then I'll ask my second question after.
Where do you want to talk about some of the opportunities that you've evaluated, thinking back even to the member community, and certainly some of the stuff we've talked about more recently that touches the fine art space?
Certainly. So there are a large number of opportunities that we see that are seeking to disrupt in some way the visual art market. These might be trying to provide access to marketplaces for emerging artists. It might be helping emerging art collectors get access to pricing data and other elements, just to sort of democratize that field. There's a lot of also overlap with what I just described with the online creator economy, since a lot of visual artists and other makers are looking to online channels to reach new audiences, to monetize their work, etc. So we're seeing lots of innovative models there, which is certainly informing our screening process and our analysis.
You want to ask your second question, Rebecca?
Yeah, and then my second question was more about like the creator social media space, and thinking about like what are the type of companies that you guys wouldn't be interested in? Like what wouldn't fit your thesis in that space? Because I know there's even more kind of angles you could take in that arena.
I'll start off, Wharton, and then maybe you can, without naming them, describe the creator marketing company that we've looked at recently, just briefly. But say is, when we think about the creator online, influencer world, one of the first things Upstart looks to verify is whether the folks are artists, designers, and creative people like chefs, magicians, hairstylists, right? Folks who truly are in that creative space, or if these are online influencers who are Kardashians, moms, lifestyle gurus, right? So the first group of folks are the kinds of creative people that Upstart's committed to thinking about when we talk about enabling sustainable creative lives. Those are the people who we're focusing on. That second group of folks who are trying to make their online presence their career, those are not the folks that are in scope for us at Upstart. So if you look at the creator marketing deep dive that's on our website that Ward's the author of, he didn't awesome job. That's one of the things that we articulate up front in terms of what's in and out of scope for us. And it really comes down to whether the person is an artist, designer, or other type of creative, not just an online influencer. But Ward, do you want to talk briefly about creator marketing as an opportunity that we've been learning?
Sure. Yeah, and then the other piece of, as far as how we scope the creator economy for the purposes of Upstart is not just, relevance to our target community, but also the degree to which there is truly impact baked into the business itself. And, one of the ways that we have been doing that is obviously looking through through the lens of our impact pillars around access to capital, sustainable creative lives are the ones that are most relevant, for this space. So just through the lens of a specific example, there is a creator marketing platform that we've been looking at that essentially allows artists, or their musicians, visual artists, writers, comedians, brands, marketing agencies to find each other for campaigns. They started with a focus on music, helping independent emerging musicians promote their music and help them get into the mainstream by pairing them with influencers on social media. Started working with record labels, to sort of expand the roster, and now work with large brands and enterprise clients. So their big goal is to really transform how diverse creative people are discovered and paid for their work online by bringing equity and transparency specifically to the pricing and the execution of creator marketing campaigns. So, by trying to be the central infrastructure for how transactions happen in the space between, these large brands and small independent creators. And so that's really the role that they're trying to play. And you can see how the strong connection to building a sustainable creative life and livelihood online for a lot of these online creators that end up being independent contractors, waiting often 60, 90 plus days for, $400 check from a large brand. You can see the impact of a company like this that's really trying to sort of streamline that and really empower creators to really manage their own businesses. So that's sort of a really compelling impact thesis within this space, which is also to say that there are many creator economy companies that might pay lip service to the fact that they're trying to change the world or change the way that creative work happens, but when you drill into it, there's really not much within the business model to really back it up.
Thank you, Ward. Any other questions from the side of the room? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Davey. Thanks for your presentation. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the requirements when you're taking on different companies or funds. I know you touched upon like alignment, but just kind of looking into what other maybe more like tangible, and I hate to use that word, aspects that you're looking, just kind of acknowledging that every company is different.
Sure. Verna, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you evaluate a fund and maybe segue into the outbound research push you're completing on media and entertainment when you did not find funds in that part of the industry that met our expectations.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at funds, I'll take you through maybe the diligence process a little bit as well to describe the level of detail we go through and how we end up making our decisions. We'll start off by trying to put together a preliminary memo, something we call a snapshot, but essentially it's like a condensed version of what we would expect to know about a fund to make sure they're a right fit for Upstart, as well as we have credibility in the team and their ability to achieve the goals that they're trying to get to. So of course, we're going to look at some of the what I would argue are venture standard questions. Who's in the team? Are they equipped? Do they have the experience? Do they have a plan for how they're going to build out the fund, and what does that look like? We're also going to look from a legal perspective. Do they have the right documentation in order? Does it make sense in terms of ownership? Are they putting in money themselves into the fund, which gives us enough of a validation that they have skin in the game? Then from an Upstart perspective, we're going to look at things like, okay, who are the founders? Is it a diverse led fund, and are they investing in diverse founders as part of their portfolio? And then we'll take it a step further and then look at creative economy alignment. What percentage of their previous portfolio, if they have a previous portfolio, was in the creative economy? Does it tie into their overall investment thesis enough that we can expect it to continue in future funds where we would be interested in investing? And are they perhaps artists and designers themselves, or they have a vested interest in these types of founders and companies? And then finally, of course, we're going to look at that impact alignment. We've got 5 impact pillars, so we're really looking for impact ideally across all 5. Of course, that's not always possible, but I just want to stress here, it's not sufficient for it to just be aligned across one of the pillars or 2 of the pillars, but we want there to be majority alignment so that it sufficiently proves our thesis as well while making an investment. And then, of course, we're going to take that to our investment committee first, get their go-ahead before we then build it out into a very long investment memo where we're then really driving out the detail, nuances, speaking to prior investors in their previous fund. We're going to speak to their founders and understand how are they really adding value, thinking about the specific things they do for their portfolio companies post-investment, and how they're looking to use their network and resources and maybe even have ongoing partnerships where they're able to pull from not just what the team expertise is, but in what other ways they're able to support their portfolio companies for long-term success. That's a very quick way of describing what we do. Of course, the process is very long and we ask a lot of questions and do a lot of reference calls, but I hope that in some way gives you an idea of the way we end up choosing the right funds and companies for our portfolio. Let me know if there's anything in particular you wanted to know about, and I'm happy to touch on it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions from the group? I also have a question. I know that you talked about what your vision of success is, and that it really is like this collaborative future for the impact economy space. Could you just speak to some of the partnerships that you have globally to help sort of amplify this work and what that looks like?
Sure. So if you go on our website or if you type Creativity Culture Capital into your browser, you'll see a platform pop up, which is based on a collection of 100 essays from all over the world, which demonstrate how the creative economy drives social and environmental impact and how impact investors are finding success in the creative economy. And this is a great example of a global collaboration that Upstart led with formerly Nesta Art and Culture, now called Figurative in the UK, which is run by Fran Sanderson, and Fundación Compromiso in Buenos Aires, which is led by Carolina Bicard. So Fran, Carolina, and I, with our teams, spent the pandemic basically putting together this collection of essays to substantiate what was happening all over the world at this intersection of impact investing and the creative economy. We timed it for 2021, which was the International Year of Creative Economy and Sustainable Development, as declared by the United Nations, led by the trade agency UNCTAD, which holds the creative economy as part of their portfolio. And it was really exciting to see the range of what was happening, and it's a resource that people continue to use. We got the good and the great of impact investing and the arts to bookend the 3 volumes of this essay collection. So cellist Yo-Yo Ma, Ford Foundation President Darren Walker, Sir Ronnie Cohen, who sees himself as the global founder of the impact investing movement. A whole range of luminaries wrote for this, as well as folks working on the ground in places like East Africa, talking about what they were doing, working with women founders and realizing that many of them were in the creative industries. So that's one example. I also participate on something called the Global Creative Economy Council, which is hosted by the British Council, which, as the name suggests, are leaders from around the world who focus on the creative industries. And I'm the only American, I'm the only person from the global north who's on this council. And so I'm able to share our experience and bring the impact investing perspective. And I learn a lot from colleagues from places like Indonesia, who've made the creative economy a national priority for their future development, particularly to support their young and growing population. We contribute a lot, as we've already mentioned, at global conferences. For example, last year I gave a keynote and curated a panel at the Deloitte Art and Finance Conference hosted in Luxembourg. And this year, Upstart is contributing a chapter to the impact investing portion of this biannual report, which, as the name suggests, talks about what happens in the art market at the intersection of investing. And increasingly, they've incorporated social impact, create and alongside cities and impact investing to kind of round out that creativity and culture picture. So those are just a few examples, and there are more, but I'll stop there.
That's very helpful to just understand the scope of your collaborations and presence globally to uplift this work. Any other final questions? If not, just say thank you for your time and your insight. It's been really lovely to hear from you. I'll send you the recording from today, but yeah, we really appreciate it. And Ward, when you're here for Mint, please reach out. We'd love to host you, art club, social impact, take you to lunch, for, a small thank you for today.
Thanks, Annabelle.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hosting us. Nice to see you. Bye-bye, Annabelle.
Thank you, everyone.